Welcome, Fright Night Vault listeners. I'm going to tell you about a woman who thought she was buying a piece of history, something quiet, something safe. She didn't know the spirit inside it had only been sleeping. Subscribe to the vault and never walk alone again. Tonight's audio horror, The Warrior Behind the Glass, starts now. Her name was Marissa Cole, and she'd always liked old things, the kind you find on shelves in small antique shops. She told me she bought the doll because it looked handcrafted, something someone cared about. It stood maybe a foot tall, carved from dark wood, dressed in fabric that was frayed but carefully stitched, a tiny spear in one hand, a small knife in the other. She said the part that caught her eye was the gold chain wrapped around its chest. Thin, delicate, but it looked out of place, like someone added it later, maybe to hold something together. She said she kept it on a floating shelf in her living room. At first she barely noticed it, but she did mention how the apartment felt different the night she brought it home. Not colder exactly, just quieter, like the air wanted to listen. You ever feel that, when a room feels like it's paying attention? She tried to ignore it. People do that. They get a strange feeling. They blame the light or the day or the way they're thinking. Marissa said the first thing she noticed was the chain. It slipped loose while she was dusting the shelf. She didn't even mean to touch it. She told me she brushed the fabric sleeve and the chain just fell off, landing on the wood floor with a small clink. She stopped, looked at it, and for some reason, she felt guilty, like she broke something she shouldn't have. She didn't know why the guilt hit her that fast. She said her chest tightened like she'd just said something out loud that the room didn't like. She told me she put the chain on the coffee table and decided she'd fix it later. But that night she couldn't stop thinking about it. She said she kept glancing at the shelf, expecting to see the doll leaning differently. That's what she said. Leaning differently. A strange way to phrase it, but she swore she thought its posture had changed every time she looked. When I asked her what she meant, she said it looked like it was listening, and then she got quiet for a moment. Later that same night, she heard something small hit the floor in the living room. Not a loud noise, more like a soft wooden tap. She assumed the doll slipped. She said she walked out with her phone light, sweeping it across the room, expecting to see it face down. Instead, it was standing upright. But it wasn't on the shelf anymore. It was on the rug, facing the hallway, like it had been placed there on purpose. I asked her how far it fell. She said the shelf was shoulder height. The doll should have toppled forward or backward, not landed neatly on its feet. She kept repeating that part. It shouldn't have been standing. It shouldn't have been upright. I could hear the way she swallowed after she said it, like she still didn't like remembering the way it looked at her from the floor. She told herself maybe she knocked it earlier and it slid off and landed right, by chance. People invent explanations when they're scared. She picked it up, set it back on the shelf, and tried to pretend she wasn't shaking. But she said she felt something in the room shift, like the air pulled in a breath she didn't hear. Later she heard soft taps again. 2 of them, light, close together, like small wooden feet touching the floor. She didn't get up that time. She didn't want to. She said she just lay still in her bed, listening to the air settle, and she told me she thought she heard a quiet voice. Not clear, not even words, just a sound shaped like breath, and it came from the hallway. Marissa said she barely slept after that. You know how it is when your mind keeps replaying something you didn't understand. She told me she kept staring at her bedroom door, waiting for it to move, waiting for the sound again. By morning, she tried to convince herself she imagined everything. She even joked with herself that maybe she needed more sleep. People use humor when they're afraid to look straight at the truth. She walked into the living room, and the first thing she noticed was the shelf. The doll wasn't on it. She said she felt her whole body go still, like her nerves shut down for a second. She saw the chain she'd placed on the coffee table the night before, and right beside it was the doll, standing upright again. But this time the spear was pointed toward the hallway, not straight ahead, and she told me she'd never seen it in that position before. When she stepped closer, she noticed something else. Dust. a thin trail of it across the hardwood, a line that led from the shelf to the table. She said it looked like someone dragged a small piece of wood across the floor. She bent down to look, and that's when she saw the faintest mark in the dust, almost like the edge of a tiny foot had scraped along. She didn't want to believe it. She said she kept whispering "no" under her breath, trying to make her own voice sound louder than her fear. She decided to put the doll away. Not throw it out, just away. People do that when they're nervous. They try to hide the thing instead of dealing with it. She put it in a cupboard under the sink because the door sticks and she thought it'd stay shut. She told me she pushed the chain in after it and closed the door hard, hearing the wood click against the frame. She even leaned on it for a second, like she needed the weight to make sure it stayed closed. For a few hours, the apartment felt normal again. She worked, she cleaned a little, she made lunch. She said she almost forgot about the sound from the night before, but then she heard something soft fall behind her. She turned and saw the cupboard door hanging open, just wide enough for a hand to slip through. And the doll wasn't inside anymore. She told me she felt the air shift, like there was something moving behind her. Not a big sound, not enough to turn her head fast, just enough to make her pause. She said she felt the smallest prick against her heel, like the point of a toothpick. When she spun around, she didn't see anything at first. Then she saw a shadow move beside the armchair, quick, low, too smooth to be an accident. She reached for her phone but dropped it when she felt another prick, this time higher on her calf, not deep, just enough to break the surface. She said a tiny line of warmth slid down her leg. That scared her more than anything, the idea that something small could cut her without her seeing it. She backed away toward the kitchen, and that's when she finally saw it, crouched by the doorway, half hidden behind the angle of the wall. The doll. Its spear tip angled just slightly upward, like it was testing the distance between them. She said it didn't move fast. It didn't need to. It stepped once, a small scrape of wood. Then again, a slower scrape, like it wanted her to hear every inch it gained. She told me she whispered "stop" without thinking, and for a moment the room felt so still she thought maybe it listened. But then its head tilted, just a fraction to the side, and she knew it understood her. She knew it wasn't confused or mindless. It was deliberate. It had intent. She ran to the bedroom and slammed the door. She said she pressed her back against it, breathing slow, trying to listen past her heartbeat. And she heard it. Light steps tapping along the hardwood, moving left, then right, then stopping just outside her door. She said she could hear the tiny wooden point of the spear tapping the floor, like it was marking where she stood. Marissa told me she stayed behind that door for maybe an hour, maybe longer. Fear messes with time like that. She said every few minutes she heard the soft scrape of wood on the floor, like it was dragging the spear or shifting its weight. Sometimes the sound moved down the hall, sometimes it came right back to the door. She said the worst part was when the sound stopped. Silence meant it was thinking, waiting. She finally decided she couldn't stay in that room forever. The only way out was the kitchen. The oven had a heavy door, thick metal, and she figured if she could trap it somehow, she might have a chance to get outside. She said she took a deep breath, grabbed the only thing she had nearby, which was a heavy flashlight, and then eased the bedroom door open just a crack. The hallway looked empty at first. Too empty. You ever notice how a space feels wrong even when nothing's in front of you? She felt that. She said she whispered to herself, "Just move," and stepped into the hall. She made it maybe 3 steps before she heard the sprint. She said it didn't run like a toy, didn't wobble or rattle. It was fast, intentional. She heard the tiny thud of its feet hitting the floor over and over, closing the distance quicker than she thought possible for something that small. When she turned, she saw it rushing toward her, spear angled toward her knee. She swung the flashlight down and hit the floor just inches from it, hard enough that the impact rang up her arm. The doll stopped, head lifted like it was studying the new distance between them. Marissa said she didn't think she just reacted. She kicked it as hard as she could, sending it sliding across the floor into the base of the couch. It hit with a dull thud, but it didn't fall apart. It got back up, Not quickly, but with this steady push, like something inside the wood wouldn't allow it to stay down. She said the way it rose made her stomach twist. It looked like a person standing after a fall, not a doll being repositioned. She ran to the kitchen, hearing it follow, the soft but sharp rhythm of its footsteps closing behind her. She grabbed the oven handle and pulled it open, the metal clanging a little louder than she meant. She didn't have a plan beyond that. She just knew she needed a container strong enough to hold it. She turned just as the doll reached the doorway. It paused again, staring, knife in one hand, spear in the other. She said she could almost feel the heat of its focus, like it was choosing where to strike next. She backed up slowly, letting it come closer, and when it stepped near the open oven door, she swung the flashlight again, knocking it sideways. She grabbed it with her other hand, gripping the wooden body, feeling its limbs twitch against her fingers. She said it felt wrong, like holding something alive that didn't want to show it was alive. She shoved it into the oven and slammed the door, twisting the lock on the handle. She told me she didn't even think. She just turned the dial and heard the gas ignite with a soft whoosh. For a second, she felt relief, just a breath of it. But then she heard the scratching. Not loud, not frantic, just steady. A slow scraping inside the oven like a fingernail trying to test the metal. She said the sound chilled her worse than anything else that night. The scratching didn't speed up or fade. It was calm, like the figure inside wasn't dying, like it didn't care. The sound finally stopped after a minute or two, and she stepped back, covering her mouth, breathing too fast. She waited for something, anything, but there was only silence. She said the quiet felt heavy, like the room was waiting for her to make the next mistake. She turned off the oven and stood there shaking, trying to convince herself it was over. But she didn't see the thin line of dark smoke slipping out from the bottom of the stove, not smoke from wood or fabric, something else, something that moved too smoothly, like it had intention. She didn't see it rise behind her. She just felt the air push lightly at her shoulders, like someone exhaling down her spine. Marissa told me the whole apartment felt different after the oven went quiet. She said the silence wasn't empty. It felt crowded, like something had stepped into the space with her. She didn't know about the smoke at first. She only realized something was wrong when she tried to breathe and felt the smallest pressure in her chest, like she'd walked into air that wasn't hers anymore. She said she whispered, "Hello," without meaning to, almost like the word got pulled out of her mouth. The lights flickered once. She said that part scared her more than anything because the flicker didn't feel electrical. It felt timed. She turned toward the living room, trying to understand the pressure she felt building behind her eyes. She told me she felt warm for a moment, a strange kind of warmth that moved across her skin like a hand. When she touched her shoulder, she swore she felt fingers pressing back, just a little, like something was settling into place behind her ribs. She walked to the bathroom mirror because she needed to see herself, needed proof she was still there. She said her reflection looked fine at first, just pale and tired. But then her head tilted, just slightly, the same angle the doll used to give her before it moved. She didn't feel her neck shift. It moved before she realized it did. And she said her own eyes didn't look scared in the reflection. They looked calm, focused, watching her. She whispered, "Stop," and her reflection smiled. Not big, not unnatural, just a small smile that didn't belong to her. She stepped back and her body followed a half-second late, like her reflection had to approve the motion before she could make it. She felt that warm pressure spread through her chest again, like something slipping into the spaces between her breath. She didn't scream. She said she couldn't. The air didn't feel like it was hers anymore. For a moment, she thought maybe she could fight it. Maybe she could push whatever it was out by thinking hard enough. But then her hands began to move on their own, slow, deliberate. They rose to her neck like she was checking for a heartbeat. She said she felt her own fingers brush her skin, but the motion didn't come from her. Her reflection watched with that same calm stare, like it was waiting for her to understand. She tried to step toward the door. Her body didn't move. She tried to turn her head. It didn't respond. And then she felt it, the smallest pull at the bottom of her lungs, a breath that wasn't hers filling her chest. She told me she knew exactly what it meant. The spirit wasn't tied to the doll anymore. The doll was gone. The vessel had changed. She leaned close to the mirror without choosing to, her face inches from the glass, watching her eyes track a motion she didn't make. She said she heard a voice inside her, not out loud, not in the room, but inside her breath. A quiet voice, shaped like someone remembering a battle. It whispered, "You opened the way," and her reflection's smile grew by a fraction, just enough to show she wasn't alone anymore. Marissa never called me again after that night. The last message she sent was only a few words, typed unevenly, like her hands didn't work right. She wrote, "It's still here," and then nothing. When the police entered her apartment, they found the oven door wide open, burnt wood inside, but no doll. Just a thin line of ash leading across the floor like something walked out of the fire and kept going. And the bedroom mirror was cracked down the center, like something pressed its face against the glass too hard while trying to understand its new reflection. Well, Fright Night Vault listeners, this is the end of this story. If you have a horror story of your own, please feel free to drop it in the comment section. You never know. The next story could be yours. Subscribe to the Vault and never walk alone again.